Hello, welcome to this video. Why am I standing out in my garage? Freezing? Because truth is, I'm impatient. I've got a project I wanted to start working on for, we're going to do it for Frostgrave, but it really can be used for anything where you want to have terrain that represents caverns and tunnels underground. And I was inspired by this, to do this kind of suddenly about a month or so ago when I was reading through the breeding pits for Frostgrave. And they come through one of the introductions to one of the scenarios is after warbands have spent days wandering through the tunnels, they come into the scenario. Several of the scenarios are large, open expanses, huge vaulted cavern type areas. But they talk about these tunnels, so I thought, wow, it'd be kind of cool to do a skirmish game in caverns. Now I've been in many different caves. Maybe too much, but I've been in caves many times. There's three that I can remember very clearly: Makokata Caves in Iowa, Eagle Cave in Wisconsin, and Carlsbad Caverns out in, I want to say it's New Mexico, but it's out west. So anyway, so I have this thing in my mind what I want it to look like. So I figured, well, what is it really going to take? It's actually very simple. Now, I don't know if anybody's done this on YouTube or anywhere. I haven't bothered looking it up. I just had the idea and thought, okay, I know how to attack this. So what are you going to need? The first thing you're going to need is, you can get from any big box home improvement type store, is a nice large sheet of 2-inch foam board, insulation board. I have to get this at Lowe's. Now, I don't know who all has them, but insulation board, released around here, comes in 3 different colors: blue, pink, and green. I've noticed this green is much tougher. You can't really squish it easily. So I figured that's going to be nice and durable. So that's why I chose this particular one. And I got a full 4 foot by 8 foot sheet. Had to cut it down. Now they won't cut it down for you at the store because saw blades and this plastic don't really mix well. So they told me about this little doodad. It's a actual insulation foam cutting knife. Okay, looks a lot like a bread knife to me. But anyway. Don't use your bread knife in the kitchen. Go ahead and use one of these to cut the major sections. This one right here is a 2 foot by 4 foot. It's the scrap piece. I've got 2 boards that I cut at the store to 3 foot by 4 foot. What I want to do is start with a 3 foot by 3 foot section. You could start with a 2 by 2 and work there, but I'll explain how you're going to do that in a little bit. But let's talk still more about what else you're going to need, because this isn't hard, but it's not easy either. So once you've got your knife to actually cut the boards into a real nice piece to work on, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, or 4 by 4, anything in the middle there. You need to have a square, preferably one long enough to cover the whole thing, a T-square or angle square that would allow you to draw the straight lines on the board, so you actually can cut straight on this. Because when you actually do the board cutting, this is what the normal board edge looks like. Okay, nice and thin, or even. But once you do the cutting with that, you can see, even our best conditions, it was a little bit, not quite perfectly straight. But it's straight enough, and it's pretty clean. You want to have that line though, so you don't end up with this odd angle cut and an odd shaped board to start with. The idea I've got, and the way I'm going to show you, is a way to get a good, nice piece of table terrain, or if you will, a game board, so that it looks good on all edges and is easy to work with game after game and give you some replayability. Now, to actually do the cutting, I'm going to direct something that I think is probably the easiest way to do that, and using one of these hot knives. Now this particular one is a Hotwire Foam Factory brand I picked up at my local game store actually. And it's a 3-inch blade, so that's plenty long enough to cut through there. It's going to help me cut those nice, what I'm going to call fine details. Now you'll see that it's not very fine, but still, it's much finer than this can cut. So, simple power supply, heats up the blade, goes in here. Now the reason I'm in the garage is you're going to be melting and possibly burning plastic. You want to have some good ventilation. So if it wasn't so cold, I'd be doing this actually outside with, nice sunlight and everything. But I need this for our next gaming session. And I thought, well, now's the time to do it. Let's get in the garage. You got a nice open area. When it comes time to actually cut, I'll open the garage door. Will be good. Get the things cut, drop the door, and I'm done. All right, now once you've got them cut, I'll show you how to do that. The other thing you're going to need is to visit the paint department of your hardware store, or really any place that sells paint. Latex paint, not spray, but good old-fashioned can paint. Okay, this happens to be a real cheap brand from the Lowe's. It happens to be, but any department or big box like Menards, Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever you guys have overseas, those places will get you a nice, a quart's probably all you need. I'll find out, and we'll find out together if a quart's going to be enough for the project I have in mind. But it's a good place to start. The thing is, avoid the temptation to paint it all gray. Rocks aren't all gray. Take a look at the, these little color charts, in samples. Look for a color that kind of pleases you. Now, my wife is not a gamer, okay? I don't really want to call her, she is artsy in a way, okay? But I'm trying to get her into that scenery side. But she actually helped pick these colors. I was going for a color very similar to this middle one, okay? Because again, when I look at the rocks that were in the caverns I remember going through, they were fairly light colored, okay? And limestone being what it is, it tends to be a light stone, so it's not going to be gray or like some of the granites. But I do remember it looking muddy, a darker color. But that wasn't what stuck in my head. I was remembering vividly in my mind this light tan color. And then she made a comment. Well, aren't the caves kind of damp? Well, if they're damp, they're going to be darker, right? And so, well, sure enough. So I went ahead and found this. Actually, this is a little darker than the original tan I was going to go with. But I did find this color, which is a very, very good match to my mind's impression of the rock work in Eagle Cave and Makokata Caves. So I found it, so I just said, okay, take it up to the counter. I need a quart of this. Voila, there we go. I'm all set to go. Now, latex is what I prefer because this is going to be bumped around a bit. Latex is a lot stronger than acrylic, not, I want to say, in hardness, but in flexibility. Now, this is a very dense, very firm, strong plastic board, and this latex will give it a finish that will be kind of, a little more durable. Now, I went with a satin finish because then it's sort of semi-glossy, so it'll have that wet look. I can always go over with an acrylic dry brush with a lighter tan if I want to have dry spots. You can go to town with this, whatever direction you want to go, but start with this and you're good to go. Alright, so the very first thing you need to do is make sure you get your board set up. So I've got a couple boards over there already set up with 3x4. I want to chop one down to 3x3. That's where I'm going to start, and then we'll start looking. I'll draw on it using regular Sharpie, permanent marker kind of thing. Draw the patterns. Now let me go do that, and when I come back, I'll explain why I did what I did. You all know how to draw with a marker, so I'm not going to show you that part. All right, so stay tuned. Okay, so here we have the finished board drawn out. Now, for Frostgrave breeding pits, dungeon setup rules, basically, they talk about, you basically pick, if there's a doorway on the map you're doing, you pick 6 to 8 entry points. And the team is set up, each player would set up within 6 inches of that. So, the first thing I did was identify my points on the board. I marked the 18-inch point on each board edge, and then to mix things up just a little bit, on these two sides, these are that's 12 inches in, and that's 12 inches in. So this is a little bit closer. Then down here, or up here, I went 9, 9, 9, 9, basically even spread there on top and bottom. That gave me a good starting point. Mix things up a little bit, get some variety so it's not so same, okay? Now, the next thing was to go 6 inches up, mark a point for each of those lines to know where the 6-inch point is, right? Then I just drew outline of the entire cavern complex. If you will, that's the outside tunnel ring. And then from there, see that intersected each of the 6-inch points, so that I knew that no matter where the 6-inch point was, there was a point where I could get a 6-inch distance between the edge and that part of the board, even though the 6 inches might be measured in a curve. And if 6 inches, if you go straight line 6 inches, so the guys can only start here. It's not like they're in the middle of the board or anything. So it gives a good variety of placement that way. So once you've done that, then you go back and you start by going from each of your entry points and drawing a line, just zigzag and curve it, and so that there's no, you can't stand there and see straight through to something. You're always got cover. It feels a little more confining, right? Once you've done that, you're going to want to pay attention. You have to design this ahead of time. Decide if you want any areas that are going to cut across before coming out. Because remember, the key to this design is once you've got all this cut out, it's not going to be a 3 by 3. It's going to be bigger. You're going to actually expand this out on the table. I'm going to use 48 inches, or 42 inches at least. So I'm going to have a 3-inch gap between each of these corridors, and it'll make open space up in the middle between all these segments. You'll see what I'm doing after I got to cut how it'll all play out. But if you were to slide these two halves away, you've got a nice 3-inch entry point, 3-inch exit point, but there's still a straight line. There's no room for here. So you have to go in and draw your initial line, and then draw another line at least an inch, maybe a little wider, depending on how big your models are, in closer, so that as you slide it apart, there's still a corridor gap there. This will eventually get discarded. I shouldn't say discarded. That will get reused and sculpted into some other piece of terrain. Okay, probably a group of stalagmites or whatever, brick wall, or not brick wall, but a stone slab. Who knows? We'll see when it gets there. Okay, once you've done that, then what you want to do is you want to, as these separate, as you pull this part of the board away, you're going to get a corridor, a tunnel corridor, basically making a ring around the gaming table. So you want to break up the segments in the middle so that they can get through into the next areas, right? So draw another area within the middle of this first circle or first border you did. Draw one just in a rough shape. Doesn't need to be symmetric or anything. Just go with it. And from that point, go in and break up the gaps. Draw a line from the outer wall to the inner wall, so that you break up the entry points. So there's like 3 are going to be able to come in this corridor piece, 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here. And that's the way the teams, or the groups, if there's more than 2 players, and let's say there's 4 players, you're going to force some of them potentially to go toward the same entry point to the center of the cavern. Or they can go the other way. It depends. It gives them tactical decisions, strategic decisions. Then with this middle piece, just a big chunk, you might as well just kind of draw a zigzag right down the middle of it. Don't get too fancy here, because this will come out. And once you've expanded the whole playing surface, you can do stuff with the middle. Either taking one of these 2 big things and just placing it, right in the middle, to make basically a bunch of concentric rings, tunnels around each other, or you can carve another piece, and that's what's kind of cool. Here's the 1-foot piece that came off the original 3x4, and you can actually sculpt in a cavern, a big hallway. So you draw, a big open pattern here, so you got the outside wall and a big, like a cavern hall, for maybe the Orc King or the Goblin King, whatever, sits there, or there's some crypt, who knows, but something in the middle there that the teams will try to get to. All right, so you're going to be able to do a lot with this space. The pieces that are here in this center are not part of necessarily this game board. that can be used with it, and any other game board you want to put together. But all of these other pieces here, all of these essentially make up a single set of tunnel terrain for your game board. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to use this knife just real quick. You're not going to watch me do the whole thing, but I want to walk you through a couple things that I happen to notice, and I want to make sure you guys are aware of it if you decide to take this approach, which personally, to try to follow these tight corners, I think this hot knife is probably the best way to go. Okay. Alright, so I've had this on a very, very short time, just about 15 seconds, and it's already, I can see, I can smell it, and I can see the smoke coming from the plastic that was on here before. Now, this does not cut fast. Do not be impatient. This is a thin steel, I'm going to call it a wire, okay? And you don't want to rush yourself. But what you're going to do very simply is hold this essentially level. Now I'm going to prop this up a bit, holding it so with my one hand vertically, so I know I can come in here and try to come in vertically here. And I'm just going to follow the line. And I'm going about as fast. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it can be, you can make it jagged, zigzagged, whatever. But I'm going as fast as the heat is allowing me. So this gives you a good idea of how fast you'll be able to cut a sheet of plastic like this. And it's probably more fun to watch, paint dry, but that's basically what we're talking about, how we use this. And don't push too much because you don't want to be bending your knife. It gets a little curve as it is. Remember, this is heating up, and so the metal will become a little more pliable, and it'll start taking a curve. So don't feel afraid to turn it every so often, so you're cutting from in a different direction on the blade. So again, here. And it doesn't have to be, perfectly vertical. You want some variety in the angles on the walls. Again, take it slow. Don't rush. I was hoping I'd get this whole thing carved out tonight. It probably won't happen. We'll see. I'm just going to take it one step at a time. And the best thing to do is cut out the chunks individually. So here, I'm going to cut this path in, and then what I'll be able to do is pop this out and place it on the ground, or based on a board or ground, just to keep it separate. You do not want to lose track of where these pieces go, so you're going to set them up. Here we go. Turn it off. I'm going to lay it down here. Hopefully nope, it's not. I'm going to lay it on the concrete ground and then pull this piece out. There we go. Boom. Okay. Part number one. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all cut and laid out on the table so that you can do what you need to next. Alright, so there is the cut board laid out. I put every piece where it was originally. And here's why. Now, we're not done with the cutting, because what we need to do now is move the board into the position it's going to be as a game table, and see if there's any areas where we may need to shave some rocks. So, this is a 36 by 36, and I want to have it be at least 42 to 48 inch wide gaming table terrain. So to do that, I'm going to just show you an example. We're going to move this piece all over here. That's a 48 inch base here. Put this corner 48 inches out. See, and then this one over, kind of equidistant, and then we're going to expand, or we're going to move the rest of these pieces out to kind of represent the change. Oh, I'm going to make some room here. All right, so see, I kind of moved everything apart to kind of give me an idea of how well is that going to work. Looks like there's enough room here between to get a figure through. So here it looks like it might be a little too close. I might be able to shift this just a bit, but no. See, yeah, I'm gonna have to take a part off of here to expand that, make it a little wider. And then this isn't so bad, a nice narrow spot. And again, I can always twist that slightly to open it up a bit. Over here. Now this is interesting because if I move there, see, you've got a pretty good shooting lane down the, which I guess is okay. I wasn't expecting that. See? What I noticed though is, you take a look at the ridges on these. This can almost be painted up just like an ice cavern, just the way it is. I'm gonna go with rocks. I want rocks, but this could be a nice ice cavern. Now here's the big empty space in the middle. This can be left as is, or using one of those two pieces that I told you about in the beginning, or was had drawn out the center. You can lay that in the middle to break things up, or even cut this in half and put two pieces. You can do a bunch of different things in the middle. It's up to you. But this way you've got a lot of caverns to kind of walk through, and it keeps the parties kind of separated and gives a place to hide if they need to, or try to set up ambushes. And I was looking at this from a Frostgrave perspective. Treasure needs to be placed at least 9 inches in from the table edge. Well, honestly, since you really can't move through stuff like this, except when you're doing secret passages, if you've got a corner or an area where there's a hollow within less than 9 inches, if you can measure 9 inches from the edge of the table through a cavern to get there, I think that could count as still being 9 inches away from the table edge. Just a thought. Some of the things I'm thinking about as how would we use a table like this? What would it look like? What would the game like? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean up some of those parts, like that one edge here. I need to shave a little bit more. And then we'll talk about, well, actually, I'll lay the whole thing out on a table so you can see what it looks like ready to go, with all the components in place. All right, catch you in a few minutes. All right, so there's the table laid out. Now, as I went through, I noticed, this went from a 36-inch board, right, to got it here. Looks like it's just under 48 inches. So this is the biggest it would be. I'm still thinking of, closing it up a little bit, maybe only 42 inches wide as a table, but I want to show something real quick. This is actually one of the reasons I chose a 2-inch tall mat, it's a foam board, right? These are the models that you've got, you'd be fighting with in Frostgrave. Of course, the golem there is huge, but the elf there is a normal size. And you can see he's swallowed up by the terrain. I'm figuring if you're playing with a 3-inch thick foam, some of the thickest foams you can get, or even like double stacking this or stacking another 1 inch on top of it to give a full 3-inch height, you'd lose the miniatures on the table. I mean, look at the table. It's kind of, you can see the miniatures in almost every space. Yet when you actually start rolling dice on a particular encounter, you still get the feel of being in the confined spaces. So, now one thing I did notice is I was thinking I'd have to, like over here, cut that extension, that little finger coming off that, what looks like, a boot. Because I didn't think it would fit. But actually, it's not too bad. And if I were to shrink this up to maybe 42 inches, so move this a little bit closer, along the edge, which would require this to come closer, I can always twist this slightly and get what I need there. Opens up this a bit. So I've got a lot of flexibility here with these pieces, the way I've cut them. That was just accident, okay? I drew it out on a piece of paper just at first to kind of get an idea of what I want to do, and that's how it worked. All right, so next step, really simple. which I'm not going to actually do because I'm looking at these, and really I like the way the walls came out. I don't mind them being kind of so vertical, and I don't want to actually shape them anymore. One of the things I'm going to do with this is make this a two-sided, so I'm going to paint both sides so I can actually turn this over and make it, have two different shapes. I can mix and match. We'll do something special with the outer pieces later. I'll show you that. But so I don't really want to, shape or carve the top or bottom edge. I don't want the undercut on one side if I happen to turn it over. So I'm going to leave them as is. What I will do though is I'll show you some of the ways you can carve and make some neat terrain pieces in a separate video, because I have an idea for something that's going to go in the middle, not for this week, but for a different scenario. And I'll kind of show you guys, give you an idea, or another terrain idea. This is the year of terrain for me, as I said earlier in one of my videos. So what we're going to do, the very next thing, is clean up these edges. You'll notice, see if this focuses. You see that little itty bitty fibers? See if I can get that to focus really well. See the fibers? That's those plastic pieces. That's from the leftover from the melt as the knife went through it. I'm going to go through and clean that up with, I'll probably take a sanding block to it. So I'll just figure out, so you just clean off the way that's easiest for you. I can actually rub it off with my fingers, so I might do that. Once I'm done with that, it's a matter of just painting it. So that's why I've got it laid out on this plastic tarp, because I'm going to go ahead tonight, I'm going to go ahead and paint these up. Just one color, that dark tan I showed you earlier. And then hopefully after it dries a bit, I'm going to turn it over and do the second side. And then these will be ready to use for this weekend. Now, there'll be one other thing after all the painting is done. I'll show you a way we're going to mark these so that you can always know how to set the perimeter up, regardless of how you decide to pack these up or whether you decide to use them upside down or not. Okay. All right, so let me get to the painting and we'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Catch you in a few minutes. All right, so here we have the board laid out. It's all set, painted front and back and all around, even the end pieces. Because honestly, these could be a flat-faced stone wall with the entrance to whatever cavern system. But overall, there's a lot of options. You can put a lot of different terrain in the middle. It could be these, it could be any other places to make it look the way you're intending. Now, the one thing that you want to be able to do, though, is vary it up a bit. You don't want to have the same pathways all the time. You may actually want to mix it up a bit. And the way you'll want to do that is by turning them over. So let me show you how you keep track of all this. Because when it comes time, actually, not just for turning them over, but just putting them back out this way, you want to make sure you know how to arrange them all. You don't want this to be a puzzle every time you go to put this table out, especially if you're one of those people who don't like puzzles. So you want to be able to mark them in such a way, and I'll show you how we're going to do that, so you can use this whether it's upside down or right side up. And I just want to give you an idea of how you would do the upside down. Essentially, you're just going to be swapping positions of all these parts left to right, and you essentially just turn things around, right? That's all there really is to it. Okay, but again, you need to remember when you put these things away in your terrain box, I'm sure it's most likely a box for most of us, you want to, just in case you get some mixed up, turned upside down, right side up, you want to keep them in order. So let's take a look at how we're going to go about doing this. You'll notice you just basically all you need is a Sharpie, permanent marker, and we're going to mark each of the borders, or each of the joints, if you will, with a code. Nothing fancy. I'm just going to use letters, nice and simple. But you definitely want to make sure they're not symmetrical. Okay. Oops. So here is the first piece. What we're going to do is we're going to put a little A here, and next to it this piece, an A, and then over here a B, and then on this one a B, and over here a C. And we'll continue all the way around. That way we know what sides go to what. And when we turn it upside down, as long as the letters are placed both upside down, you know you've got the tube matching. Alright, so that's all there really is to finishing out the tabletop. Of course, you can take it to the next level. You don't. I put this together what I would call quickly, so that I can get a table ready for this weekend's Frostgrave campaign. And I can see I got a couple touch-ups. Where paint has peeled off onto the plastic, but you know, it's nothing major. But you can go into a lot more detail if you want, carving these, putting different textures on them. You could actually, on the outside, you know, sprinkle sand in, or you know, to make them a little bit more rougher. You know, whatever effect you're looking for. It doesn't have to be just as simple as this. But this is a great way to start. And if you're looking for a quick way to get some caverns, here you go. As a matter of fact, you can use this same principle with making like plateau desert kind of rock outcroppings in a regular above the surface type map. You know, you have think of the small canyons, low plateaus. You know, it's sand between them, and you've got these high cliffs. They're not very high, but they're small cliffs that are just high enough to obscure your view from your enemy or to your enemy, but enough to, it's good cover, but it's going to be some limited mobility. Now, of course, the whole board won't have this, but a section may very well have it. Maybe it's only one corner of the board. So, again, opening your mind to some different ideas. So, I hope you found this interesting. I hope maybe inspired you to try some different terrain. And I'm going to go ahead and finish lettering all these. And I can't wait to see it on the tabletop when I play Frostgrave this weekend. All right. Well, thank you guys for sticking with me. Please share this with other friends you have that happen to play some miniatures games, that especially the ones that have underground scenarios. And even D&D players, Pathfinder players can leverage something like this if they want to get 3D with their miniatures and what have you. So anyway, thanks, share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.